Well, welcome to another live stream. I can't believe it's the second Sunday in January already. It doesn't seem like it, does it? It nearly caught me out. But thank you to everybody who has made it. I've seen a lot of people in chat and I can see there's loads of people there who are just hanging around quietly. Don't worry, I appreciate you all whether you say something or not. And wow, it feels like the end of an era. It's the end of a year at least. I've been doing the Port Dinorwic live streams this is number 11, so for most of the year. And I actually built almost all of it in 8 weeks. Earlier on, it was finished by about the 1st, 2nd of July, ready for the cameras. and I've been putting out the live streams ever since. So this is your first one. Welcome. It's all about the finishing touches that went on the layout, and you'll actually get to see some of the layout as well. If it's not your first one, then thank you for coming to all the rest. You'll appreciate just how much effort went into this. When I came to edit it this week, there was about a day and 18 hours of double camera shots. So a lot of that was double camera. So that was well over 2 days of actual footage to edit down. It has taken me all week. It has been so much. So anyway, very excited. It's on TV tomorrow on Yesterday at 8 p.m. Yesterday does confuse people. It's a UK TV channel, UK TV play, free to air in the UK. It's the YouTube video will go out about the same time, and also hopefully around that time, well, in the morning, it'll be getting some photos, but more about that in a minute. So let's just say hello to everyone in chat who's snuck in since I basically started talking. So Alan's commenting, sorry not had a chance for anyone about Blondins in Llanberis Quarry yet. It's all right. Tim Williams found out for me. They are called Blondins in Dinorwic. They're never called chain inclines. They're sometimes called something else, which he'll remind me in a minute, which I've already forgotten. But yeah, they're not called they are called Blondins in Dinorwic. We finally got a definitive answer on that from somebody who was a Dinorwic, or whose family were Dinorwic quarrymen. So that's cool. That was a very exciting point from last time. So who else have we got? Tom, welcome aboard. Anthony, welcome. Stephen, welcome. Secret Anorak, not so secret if you're out here. Alan and Sherilyn from New Zealand. Alan says hi, welcome. Stating the Obvious has arrived. Nice to see you. Langton Road, Alan, Jaw21. Gosh, loads of people coming in. The other, Winch, thank you. I was going, it's something, Winch, that was it. So welcome everybody. Now, this time we have another hour and a half of doing finishing touches, which included quite a long segue into doing some stuff that never really then made it into the light of day, but like the telegraph poles I've now taken off. But it's mostly about putting the finishing details on and getting the atmosphere. So we'll talk about that, and you can get to see some of the layout as it looks finally finished. And just to sum up where we've come from so far, across 11 live streams, so 10 so far, we've looked at the baseboards, the track, the scenery, the greenery, all the Daz clay work took a whole night, I think. Weeks and weeks of that. Painting, that took forever. There's a painting montage in the YouTube video that goes on forever. And even then, I still had rolling stock. This time, we've got more along the lines of painting people, quite quick, by comparison to some of the other stuff. And also some finishing touches. So, I'm going to put the video to go fairly shortly. But first, I guess I just need to talk a little bit about, what's happening over the next couple of days with it. So tonight's the live stream. Tomorrow, 10 a.m, Phil is turning up from British Railway Modelling to take some photos of it. And he asked on Friday, and I'm like, okay, so everything is coming tomorrow. The plumber's coming, the boiler guy's coming to service the boilers. The builders are here. Phil's here. I've got to go up to sort out the workshop, and I've also got to go and pick my sister up. So how I'm going to fit all that into tomorrow remains to be seen. But I went to run the layout to check it still ran, because it's been upstairs and it's been brought down by the builders, and a lot of stuff kind of, the rolling stock had all come off. And my blooming handset just turns on and turns off. It won't stay on and work. It's not a short, because then it would come on and buzz. It has I know what a short looks like. And all the stuff I have to fix it is in boxes buried somewhere in this house, to try out different panels and things. But it's done it before, and it was a power thing. And when I push in the plug, it's an American adapter, and I push it into the wall, and I can hear it arcing sometimes. So I think there's a problem with the plug. So I really hope Phil doesn't want it to run tomorrow, because I haven't had a chance to fix it. I tried a few of the basic things today, and it just wasn't going there. So I'm like, it's photos, not video. So let's just hope they don't mind, and then I can get it fixed. Probably when it's back upstairs, in case something's just jogged loose and I need to sort it. But it's got power, so obviously everything's coming through okay. Just a bit worrying that your layout suddenly stops working. And it's the controller, not the layout, I think. So, who else have we got arrived? Phil Parker says hi. Hey. He's obviously excited to come and photo it. Matt Smith says hi. Always happy to have. I'm not going to make a Doctor joke because I'm sure you've had all the Doctor Who jokes. And Secret Anorak. I thought women could multitask. Lol, kidding Kathy. No, women multi-program, men multitask. So women do multiple things at once. Apparently it goes back to the cave time of having to look after the kids and cook. And men could do multitasks like running and shooting at the same time because they're focused on, something all with a common aim. Yeah, something like that anyway, if you believe it. Who knows? They'll make some other theory up soon, won't they? But I just couldn't get my controller fixed. What controller is it? Langton Road's asking. So it's an NCE power cab on this. So it's DCC. It's a single handheld cab that you can plug into a normal NCE socket. And all the gubbins is in that. It just needs an RJ45, RX45, whatever it is, socket in the back of the NCE plate. The power goes in the other side. It's 13.5 volts. I don't have any other 13.5 volt just power packs around. I did have a quick look. They're all 12 volt. So I can't really just swap over the power pack to see. But I'll probably order a 13.5. It's just a weird amount to have, 13.5 volt. But I'll have to order a 13.5 volt power thing if it's not that, because I think it's the power. But it's the only power cab I have, because I have 4 controllers, but only one of them will do it on its own. And the rest of them plug into the main big box, but this isn't set up for the big box. It's not wired in for that. And the big box is in a big pile upstairs. And getting to some of those boxes is a full-time job now. Yeah, I can't wait to get it done. More about the workshop later, perhaps, if we get time, though I doubt it. Maybe next time. So Ratty Rex says, shop off American plug, wire into a UK one. I may have to do that because there's definitely something going wrong there. And I've got a spare UK one around, so I might do that tomorrow morning. He's not coming till 10, so I've got a bit of time to play with it. Tim says, Quarrel Tegged was not running at all when Steve Flint came to take photos. It did move, but everything was sticky. This isn't even coming on. None of the sounds coming on. It's obviously, it comes on, it goes, whoa, I'm a controller, and then it turns itself off. And then it comes on, oh, I'm a controller, and then it turns itself off. It never gets to the powering up the layout part of it, which is just annoying. Right. So it doesn't. So Ratty Rex asked, does it go through a US to UK transformer? No, I don't think so. I think it's one of those transformers that just recognises what's come in and put out a 13.5 volt. So it's got an American plug, but I've always just plugged it into a UK wall socket. I think that's just, most transformers now will do 240 or 110 and convert them. So that's okay. So yeah. And I missed a comment on my scarf. Yes, it's a lovely scarf. It's a present from a friend. So yeah, it's very good. I was quite cold earlier, and this is my really warm, fluffy top. But the heating's on. Come on now, so I'm kind of going to be baking in a minute. So tomorrow's job is to fix that. So Ned Paul says, Happy New Year. Determined to get out of the armchair and make my first proper layout this year. Good for you, Ned. It will be really enjoyable. I'm sure you will love it. So Norm says it's not the controller, it's the plug adapter. I'm with you there. I think it did this before and I wiggled the plug adapter and eventually it worked. But it was just too late in the day to fix it. And I had other things to do, like this, sorting this out. So I will have a go tomorrow. I've got to be up for 8 for the builders. So a couple of hours to rewire that plug sounds like a plan. And then Scale Mark's arrived because Digger says, hi Mark. Better late than never. Definitely true. So Simon's got to go. Well, enjoy watching it tomorrow, Simon. Thank you for your brief pop-in. We appreciate it. Bill says Happy New Year. David, it's probably 13.5 volt to allow it to drop to 12. I don't know, because DCC doesn't put out 12. DCC puts out about 13.5. So I suspect it does put out more than 12. when I can manage to get it checked. So I suspect it does actually put out something around there. And some DCC systems run at 16 volt. It's really quite funny. Anthony, why does European model railroad look more detailed and realistic than US model railroads? I don't think they do. I've seen plenty of beautiful, realistic US railroads. Just absolutely stunning, blow you away, realistic ones. Pele Soberg, he's a European modeler doing the US. Looks great. They're very different, and I think one of the problems is a lot of Americans have 60-foot basements and they fill the 60-foot basement, and you can't do the detail on a 60-foot basement that you can do on a 4-foot, 12-foot layout, which is often a European size, will be smaller. So Europeans often go more detailed because they're doing something smaller. But I've seen plenty of really, really great, detailed, beautiful, realistic looking American layouts. So definitely. And also in the UK, I only ever see the best European ones come across for things like Worley. But in America, I've been and seen a lot of those best ones, and they're in people's houses, so you don't see them in shows. You might see them briefly in a magazine, but it's not the same as seeing them in person. They don't really do exhibition layouts in the same way. So they're less likely to be seen out and about. You actually have to go and visit. So yeah. But anyway, they're different styles as well. Having done a 12-foot square triple deck, I would never do anything that big again. I much prefer a smaller, more detailed, finish it in one go, like this micro layout, which is 3 foot long. It's just plenty big enough for me with 2 field yards, so that's cool. Is the real now Clanberis Lake Railway? I'm not familiar with the prototype, asked Brockwell Lane. No, the real line, it's nothing there now. It's all been ripped out. The Clanberis was the Padarn Railway that brought, on a sort of mainline-ish, they had 2 of the little slate wagons on larger wagons, and they brought them down on the Padarn Railway, and they dropped them down the incline on chains into this dock. And then it had its own engines, so it's slightly different, though Clanberis Lake runs some of the same sort of stock, so you'll see these little slate wagons there. No, Phil says it doesn't need to work for the photos, no one will know, as long as we move the locos a bit so it looks, I mean everyone knows now, I've just said, hopefully we'll get it working. I did think it was a power thing, but I thought I'd ask tonight actually, rather than spend ages going down a rabbit hole. Once I saw it was 13.5 volts, I was just like, it's a pain. And we'll move the ones around. I just got most of it back on the track, I think. So Stephen says, we've got the builders starting a new shower room tomorrow in a fortnight's time. We're getting the roof repaired and a new garage installed, starting to demolish the old one today. That sounds like a mess, Stephen, and I feel for you because they started October and I'm still in the middle of it. It is now really exciting. I've been putting off spamming everyone with workshop pictures, but I'll probably do some on Instagram. At some point, but I put them on Discord, my Discord earlier, which you can join, and somebody hopefully will put the Discord link in the chat because I totally forgot to do it. Whoops, again. And basically, it's now been up to drywall, so it's for Americans, or plasterboarded for the UK people. So you can see what it looks like as a room, and it's really big. But then I think my entire lounge is full of stuff. My entire front bedroom is full of stuff. I mean, my other front bedroom is emptied out, which had a lot of stuff in it as well. And my hallway is full of stuff. And my dining room is full of stuff. And I just don't know if it's all going to fit. So stating the obvious, have you plugged it into the correct socket in the faceplate? There's only 2 sockets. And there's only the one that's actually you can get it to. One's actually partly obscured because it's inside the back of the layout, and it's the same one I've been plugging it into for the last year. So it worked earlier this year. So I think it's I think it's an issue not to do with the faceplate. It could be wires come loose with all the moving, but yeah. Langton Road, I've got an NCE power cab also, never had that issue. Pretty certain I've seen a thread about the issue. You seem to have, maybe it was on RM Web. I looked and they said, oh, get in touch with NCE, at which point I went, someone else had the same problem. They said, you need to get in touch with NCE. And I'm like, well, I'm not going to manage that on a Sunday night before Phil comes tomorrow. And Phil said to me, do not electrocute yourself before tomorrow. Well, I'll try not to. We'll see. It's hopefully only 13.5 volts. I'm okay at wiring plugs in. So yeah, and then, right, I'm going to put the movie to go in the background actually, and then come back to chat. So this is all about details for Port Dinorwic. So you'll see a lot of footage, and I mean a lot of footage, which will be everything from painting to adding final details. So if you've missed all of the sort of ones to date, this is DAS clay for the rock work. The wall to the left is a 3D print that's been painted. The tunnel mouth is a 3D print. The brown on top and to the right behind that ivy is sculptor mould covered. It was foam and then sculptor mould covered with raw umber. And then the bushes were horsehair or polyfibre covered with just green by knock. Now, green leaves by knock. Everything is getting a lot of washes. Every single thing around here got a wash, an oil paint wash, or mostly oil paint washes, sometimes enamel washes, just depending whether I'd picked up an enamel one for a change. Some of the greens are enamel, you see. They're like AK Interactive. This will be a oil wash though, because it's cheap to make really large amounts of wash when you're doing terrain. And once they've had a wash, they'll have a pigment. Now for the pigment, I did use a lot of tile grout, but I also use Vallejo. I guess it was called light slate grey and dark slate grey, but they weren't slaty, they were more brown than slate. Slate's never that brown. So yeah. And this is a bluish toned oil wash because I felt that my slate colour that I'd painted all these was just a little too green. So I went over it with a wash, but I made sure it had a bluey purple tone to knock it back down. There's a mix of different colours, but Dinorwic isn't as green as this turned out when it dried. So yeah. So what have we got to? Yeah, I'm not electrocuting myself. Radford's arrived. Evening, Radford. Adrian, he probably needs to look at more layouts. There are plenty of highly detailed US layouts. It is true, and there's plenty of magazines that show them off. There are also, because America's a massive market, there's an awful lot of generic, very Walthers driven 60 foot, as I said, or large layouts. And then the reason they're like that is not that they're not good modelers, but they're not modelers like you or I. Operations is a big thing in America that you just don't see in the UK or Europe. And for that, there are actually a lot of layouts that are just plywood and immaculate track work. And they have dispatches in different rooms. It's all about running the layout like the real thing. And that is more important to them than the scenery and the realism. And that's good. It's good that there's a broad church of people who do modelling and they have different interests. And operations can be really fun to do. Especially on the big layouts the Americans have, you know, it can be brilliant. It can be very fun on a small switching layout too. But they might have crews or 8 or 10 people who come along. So some of these big layouts aren't aiming to be realistic. And because they don't aim to be realistic, they aim to be realistic operations, not realistic scenery. And I think it's a big distinction that just doesn't really occur in the UK and Europe as much. Keep getting told to insert ads. You don't want ads, do you? You'll get them tomorrow if you rewatch it. Yeah. Stephen says it's in the eye of the beholder. Yeah, I think that's what I'm saying. Some of them are not going for the same as you and I are. That's for sure. Patrick Davies says, absolutely love the project. Thank you so much. This just was so quick and so compacted. And yet I felt, quite often with YouTube, I feel like I stop at 95%. And with this, I don't feel I did. I think I got it all the way through. The only thing I stopped short on is getting the 009. I'd spent ages getting them all working, but they don't run as well as they can. They need reweighting, and the couplers are a little dodgy, to put it mildly. So they probably need the couplers sorting properly. I don't think I'm ever taking that rake apart once it's coupled properly. But because of that, the only thing I would say is the 009 needs weighting, and I haven't done that yet. Partly because this got finished in such a rush, and then I was like, whoa, I'm now backlogged in everything else because I'd done nothing but this for 8 weeks. So Tim Williams says the Northlands Miniature Train and Wonderland in Flemington, New Jersey is an exercise in scale. Very impressive side, but most of the modelling is very basic. Yeah, that's very true. And Tim says it's still worth visiting. I mean, some of these big layouts are exquisite, don't get me wrong. I have been to absolutely exquisite layouts that are massive. Like, I'm talking whole buildings built just to house the layout. And they may have had people working with them. It may not be all their own work. There's a lot more gangs of people working on things in America. You know, here we might go to a club. Sometimes there they'll go and help a mate. People may pay for others to come in and do bits they're not good on. It's a very different feeling. I actually did a whole clinic on it once. I think it's probably on YouTube, the difference between the US and UK. And it is a bit like you look at our houses, and I've been to American houses that are, you know, their basements are bigger than my whole house. Not with my new loft. And Digger's put up the Discord link. So thank you. I do chat. I mean, I'm on Discord more than any other social media. It's the one I go on to. I really like the fact that I just listen to conversations, and I mute a lot of channels that have stuff I'm not interested in, and I only listen to conversations I want to talk about. But I've been quite bad on social media last year, 2022, and I've got out of the habit of posting on it. I guess I need to get back to it. It was sort of a 2023, I probably should do something, and I haven't. So I've done a few, but I forgot Flashback Friday. I need to change it to a different day because Friday night I don't feel like posting on Instagram. So there we go. Norm, oh boy, movie time. I hope you've all got the popcorn. There's an awful lot of me adding washes. So these are all still oil washes. And those little container you can see I put it in, they're so useful. You buy them anywhere that does catering. I got mine off Amazon, obviously. It was lockdown, I think, when I bought them. But they're sauce containers, and they have a little lid. It's a separate lid, and I use the lid sometimes like a little palette. And they're brilliant because you can put the lid on and leave it, so you can keep that for the whole project. You know, I mixed up enough to do my whole layout, and that's the same stuff that went on the buildings, and it gets kept. And oil washes are really cheap. Mineral spirits, I'm using the odourless thinners, and I did buy a big batch of them just to save my head, but you still need to vent with them. They're still lethal, you just can't smell them. And it's just such a cheap way. This is Starship Filth. It's an Abteilung 402. It's a sci-fi one, but it's just a beautiful, dirty, filthy grey. It's just one of my favourite colours that I've got. And someone had recommended it, which is why I chose it. It's great. It just adds weathering to everything, and it brings out all the details. Now, I know I did a video on I don't really highlight much, and you'll see that here. I'm not putting any highlighting on, I'm not dry brushing, I'm not doing anything. And that's because I don't want a high contrast layout. I want this to feel quite desaturated. It's been an aim. So I'm putting in the shadows, but I'm not putting in the highlights on any of this stuff. And that's very different to when you see terrain or sort of the more stylised type. But it's very typical of model railways, which is what we do. But people went through a phase of, certainly when I was modelling at the start, white dry brushing everything, and I've never white dry brushed in my life. If I was going to dry brush this with anything, it would have been a paler grey. So let's keep going down. Oh boy, Secret Anorak. Rent yourself a shipping container, Kathy. Out of sight, out of mind. I rented 1 month ago and haven't regretted it. Yeah, but then I'll just keep the stuff. I'm a hoarder and I need to get rid of some of the stuff. James Pett. I approve operations and signalling. Oh yeah, it's great fun. It is great fun. My one upstairs was all set up. But you also like a bit of scenery, James, and I don't blame you. I think it can be more immersive with realism if you have scenery. It doesn't have to be, because you can get very absorbed in the operations, but it's more like a puzzle then than running a model railway through scenery. Digger says Franklin and South Manchester is a good layout. I've been to see it. I've got to say it wasn't my favourite in the US. I would say that was Dick Elwell, and sadly he died last month. Dick Elwell's layout was absolutely stunning, and it's New England, and that was probably my favourite. A massive one, but beautifully well done. So you could, if you were to look Dick Elwell up, you would find it, and it's a stunningly good one. But I've been to see the Franklin in South Manchester, and it's a great layout. So Mark says, for light pigment, I use lunar dust, not just for sci-fi, but it's great for toning down. I think people sometimes get put off by the names. I certainly would never want to use Games Workshop paints that are called Orc Breath or whatever they are. But actually, they're just greens and sludges. and I bought an awful lot of oils in dust colours, white dust, yellow dust, tan dust, biscuit dust, and they're all called ridiculous names. But at the end of the day, you just look at the picture on the side, the little colour swatch, and go, that looks like a dusty colour. And then no matter which layout I'm doing, I have a wash that will suit it. Marcus says he's sorry he's late. Nice to have you here. Better late than never. So everyone say good morning, good evening. Adrian, Europe has always had a free way of thinking and better creativity. US can be straightforward and simple sometimes. That's why people are watching today for creative aspect. I think there's been a different emphasis in the magazines, in the books, and sort of in what people follow. But I think with YouTube and the globalization of the hobby, I think a lot more people are getting cross-pollinated. I got most of my weathering from military modelling, because at the time, railway modelling wasn't weathering when I first started. And so I started to look at military modelling, and I've still got all my washes that I had right from the outset, all those original MIG Productions washes that have now come back in, thankfully, so I can rebuy my favourite neutral wash and dark wash. And they're really good. I've used them for years, and what I do realise is every branch of modelling has something to learn from it, whether it's European versus American, military versus railway. You can learn something from all of them. So Robinson says, for a realistic American railway, you need a very big layout. You cannot run a train with 4 locos and fronts on 140 boxcars and a pusher on the end train on a 10-foot layout. That's very true, and that's actually why I got rid of so much of my railway stock. I got rid of 32 crates off my other layout. Why? Because I'm going to do micro layouts in future. And a micro layout does not need a foot-long passenger car when it's only 3 foot long. It can run 2 lengths, and then you can't run more than 2, or Felinheli will only fit 1. It's ridiculous. So I got rid of all my stuff that was too long, and I kept all the industrial things because I can do small switching layouts. But if you're into big American trains, you need a minimum of 12 foot to get a good train in down one side, maybe 8 foot if you've got a lot of scenery blockers, so it's hard to see the length of the train. But it is true that, and this was something that Ian Rice used to say, if you can't see the beginning and end of a train because of scenery, it feels long. And that is actually a true fact. Hi Sparky, who's arrived. Oh, I haven't said, he said hello mods, but I haven't said thank you to my moderators. Oh, I'm so sorry. So thank you to Norm, Digger and Timber, who are my great moderators. They do excellent work getting rid of all those adult chatbots who love to gate crash. I'm sure you're... So Discord is saying the invite is out of date. Oh, that's interesting. You need to go and generate a new one. You can do it in the server, but probably best if I don't do it while I'm talking. I'm a rocker, lol. So Jan Fjord, hello. Marcus, I hope all's well with you. Spademan's saying hello. Resin, yes you can. It would be a class 2 or local operation. All layouts in the US are not class 1 designed. No, that's true. You can do switching ones. I mean, I love looking around the area of New York for ideal switching layouts because everything was so compact. Small little trains running amongst urban. It's beautiful. And I've seen people do some great representations of that this side of the Atlantic as well. So Humble 147 is my white paint of choice. It's interesting, Phil. I actually moved off Humble and got rid of them all because I went to acrylics for hand painting, and I spray Mr. Colour lacquers. So I had too much paint and it was going off. So I just think I took it to a group meet and let everyone take what they wanted because some of it was quite old, just happy to get rid of it. But I've got Tamiya, Vallejo, maybe a few odd other colours from other people in acrylic, and then Mr. Colour and SMS paints in lacquers. And I spray lacquers and I hand paint acrylic. So I haven't done Humbrol in ages, but what I do have are loads of enamel washes from AK and MIG and all the rest that I've had for 10, 12, 15 years maybe now. And so when I use enamels, it's washes. So Stephen, I think the problem is that we Brits tend to think of things like the Donna Pass when we think of American modelling, which is difficult to do justice, but small yards are also possible. I think, Stephen, I have the advantage that I went to the States twice a year, every year for about 6 years, and I went to, 8, 10 home layouts every time I went. So I've seen a lot of home layouts, and I can promise you there is some excellent modelling over there in small stuff, large stuff, whatever it is, it's there. What you don't have are the exhibition layouts, as I said, and their modular layouts are not. It's harder to make a modular layout look good. Just an aside on this movie, this is either pigment or tile grout. I kind of mixed them up a bit as well, depending whether I was going for a browner colour, which was the taupe tile grout, and that had a bit of slate thrown in it. Some of the slate that was used at the base of the front of the dock. And so when I was putting it in loads and things, it's got a few bits of slate there, which just gives it a bit of realism. But I felt the slate was a bit bright, so that also got a big tile grouting as well. So everything starts to look the same after a while. It's all toned down. Marcus, model railway, I'm fine, thanks. I picked up a couple of cheap German steam locos from a car booster sale. Oh, start of an addiction. Bill, lol, names are something else. Citadel, lead belcher is one I use a lot. I'm not into using theirs because I've already got a whole set, but I did buy some Army Painter speed paints, and they do have some interesting, names as well. Just who sits there and thinks them up? Right, hello Andy. Sorry, don't worry about being late. You are here. That's the important thing. Tamsin, that's why I stick with Vallejo Model Colour Air. No silly names. Yes, I like them. They're black red, red black, black grey. Grey black. They're all very, very, sometimes they get a few military type ones, but they're all just like green, olive green, light orange, dark orange, bright orange. Very, very easy to work out what they are. So Bill says, realistic toning and colouring is my nemesis, as I never got the end of that. Don't know why that posted as two separate messages. I didn't even see, colourblind. That is a hard one. That is a hard one, Bill. And I don't really have much that, not being colourblind myself, I don't really have much to say about ways to get round it, other than to ask somebody else what the colours are and to perhaps come up with recipes using colour names. So that's where Vallejo is good, because you don't have to worry what colour lead belcher is. It will tell you it's black grey on the side or whatever. So Adrian says, military modelling for paint and weathering. Space scratch building will help in building scratch industry, and RC etc. will help you in electronics. Everything can be used to expand your knowledge. Yeah, that's very true. And I've modelled them all at some point. Ravenson, in a German N-scale forum, somebody wanted to build a US layout from the ore to steel. I think this is not possible when you don't have a very big hall. I don't know. I think you probably could if you picked an older operation. It depends when you want to set it. It's got bigger as it's got newer. But back in the day, you look back at some of the original, you think of the lumber companies, but some of those small Shays, narrow gauge, ON30 style, but in HON3, you could get quite a lot in if you brought in something that brought mining and then to an old-fashioned smelter. Everything was smaller back then. So I think you could, but you wouldn't be able to do it in modern day as easily. It is true, but again, selective compression. Markers, have I ever tried the Flurry washes? I think they're great being clay-based so they can be removed with water. I haven't, Marcus, because I already have so many washes, and actually, it's going to sound a bit sad, I don't want my washes to be removed with water. I want my washes to stay put. So I use enamel washes when I'm doing washes mostly, or oil washes, and they're there for a day or so. You can go back and go over them and work them, and then they set nice and solid, and you can just handle them. And I'm very happy with that. So people on and off say to me, what about Flurry washes? And to be honest, I'm very happy with what I have at the moment, so I'm not looking to try anything new. These slate piles, I did mix up. So these are 3D prints I designed and put together. I did mix up a huge amount of slate colour, as I said, and sprayed these. I've still got about half a bottle left. And it's just green. It's mostly primer because it's cheaper. And you've just seen them be weathered. So I'm just gluing them in place with white glue. And the big problem is, you can see there's big black gaps around the bottom. I should not have done the slate first underneath. I should have put these down and then put that slate in. Because what's happened is I now had to go and just put so much slate on around the edges to bed them in, because I hate black gaps. Thing in New York that I would find it fun to model is a subway. But I have a thing for intensive urban operations. I actually had a subway planned that was going to be like a column going through with a subway going this way and this way. And I was going to do 8th and 14th, I think, in New York. So, and I had it all mapped out, ready to go. And then I didn't get any further. And I was going to just do sections through the cars, the subway cars, as they call them, rather than having it moving, because that gets around the fact it's all in tunnels. Yeah. Dinorwic, says Average J. Indeed. So Digger's put another Discord link up. Thanks, Digger. I get no text channels error with that link. Kathy, even with a large layout, is supposed to break it down to smaller scenes, which also get the illusion of distance. I think that's right, Sparky. If you treat everything as layout design elements, I think they got called at one point, scenes, whatever it is, it becomes more manageable and you can complete it and get something looking good. It is easier to work on as well. So Digger says, sorry about that, James. I think we're still stuck on these Discord links. I don't understand why. Normally if you generate a link, it's only 7 days, but I always generate them as indefinite, so they should all be indefinite. Kathy, what have you planned for the 3 openings at the right hand of the layout? Nothing. I just always video it from cropped, so they're not there. Or actually I look through them. But no, they're sky. I originally had a bridge on the left, but because of where I put it, the realistic person in me, the prototype modeler, went, oh, I can't put it quite far enough to block because that isn't where it is in real life. So I just make sure you look at it straight on and I photo it straight on. But because it's a small layout, there's not much you can do. I'm not going to model the rest of the dock. Everything beyond it is painted black. So it just becomes a black hole, effectively. I couldn't think of much else to do with it. That little building was supposed to help hide it a bit. And I did put in some telegraph poles as well. More about those in a minute. Oh, and Digger's putting out my book. Yeah, it's on the side there. So yes, I did write a book on how to model realistic railroad scenery last year. If you want to know how to do it. And Digger's put a link up. He's geared, isn't he? So Adrian, just curve the track layout a bit to compress and make the big industry fit a bit better. It'll probably bring out your design better in a straight edge design. Yeah, I rarely put things straight. And you can see from this, it's parallel as it enters and exits, mostly because then the fiddle yards are easier to do. But actually there's a big curve in the middle, which it was in real life. It's actually a curved location. So George, Kathy, you mentioned SMS paints. They're local for me. Are they well known in the UK? Huge range. So I don't know how well known they are in the UK, but they're certainly well known amongst Gundam modelers, which is where I picked it up. And I was at IPMS and Frome Model Centre was selling them and somewhere else was. So I saw them in a couple of locations. I think they'll pick up. When you're looking to spray lacquers in the UK, specifically lacquers, you've only really got Mr. Colour at the moment. You know, some of the others are just so hard to get, like Gaia or some of the other ones that people rave about. So what you end up with is if SMS come in, I think people will take them. And I wanted them for the colour shifting type colours, and some of their colours are much brighter and different to Mr. Colour. Though I generally spray Mr. Colour. SMS are pre-mixed, so I have sprayed them a little bit. But I haven't done the project I bought them for. But I did buy some glow-in-the-dark and UV reactive sort of paints when I was at IPMS to play with. Haven't played with them yet, but I have plans. But they are huge and they're very nice. I have sprayed them a little, not a huge amount, and they've been very nice to spray. Mark Warren says, I have always used Starship Filth. They did stop production of it a few years ago until I did a studio scale Falcon for a certain company. And they brought it back as well as a Falcon set. That's a good thing because that is actually an excellent colour. Yeah, I'm glad you did that, Mark. Combat Media in the States, Sparky. Yeah, you can get it on Amazon. Yeah, James says there's nothing wrong with a mouse hole boundary. That's what he's talking about, my little black things. You see it here because of the way the camera's set up. Actually, when you're in front of the layout, there's not much you can do about it, but it's such a small layout. You don't notice it as much as you think you might. OK394 says the Discord invite link from the website works. It needs to end invite instead of channel bunch of numbers. So I think, yeah, that was just I knew I'd put up an indefinite one somewhere. So there we go. That's excellent. Is Mr. Colour any good? Keep hearing good things about them. Mr. Colour is just reliable in a vast range of colours. Military, mostly Japanese military, but military and Gundam. And it sprays beautifully. I do 1.5, I pre-mix the whole container when I get it. And not when I get it, when I want to use it. And I've got a few colours that I'm mixing them as I go, basically. So I've got a few colours I tend to repeat order, like super white and tire black. So you get a pot about this big, so it's the same size as a Tamiya if you haven't ever seen it. And that is, I thin it with their Mr. Leveling thinner, and I do 1.5. So I empty out the pot, fill it up with Mr. Leveling, swish it, empty it out, fill it half full, swish it, empty it out. Pot's clean now. And I put it in one of those sort of capped, swivel capped, squirty bottles. And you can fill up your airbrush then with it straight away, and it'll stay mixed for years. And it just does a nice job. It doesn't seem to chip. It does well. Really enjoyed it. So these, back to the video, are 3D prints that I've also painted. You're watching me gluing. You can see the brownish colour here is tile grout with some slate thrown in. And it's going over the slate to just tone everything down a bit. These are also already been weathered with more tile grout. And I'm gluing it all with a spray of isopropyl alcohol, which just breaks the surface tension. Now, isopropyl alcohol, I buy 10 litres at a time now for 3D printing. So I mix about 1/3 isopropyl alcohol to 2/3 water and put it in a fine spray bottle, the finest you can find. And then I spray it on. And then I've been dripping the dilute matte Mod Podge to avoid getting it all over everything else every time I spray, because I like gloss at the front on the dock water, etc. now. And so I'm dripping on dilute matte Mod Podge, and it's about a 1/6 matte Mod Podge. Now it should be a bit stronger, realistically. That's not really that strong, but there's two things that mitigate that. One, the tile grout has cement, so it doesn't need such a strong glue. And two, that'll go through my fine spray bottles if I do want to spray it. And I just mix up one batch of matte Mod Podge diluted and put it in the dropper bottles, and I mix a big milk carton, 2 litres of it at a time. So it's really very, very dilute matte Mod Podge. It works really well for me because I'm using tile grout a lot. If I want things to stick really well, like I was doing terrain or something that's going to be knocked a lot, I would actually mix the tile grout into PVA glue and add water to get it to the right sort of consistency, and I'd apply the tile grout like that. But for realism, you can't beat dry tile grout going on. And you can see I've used it everywhere here. It just goes everywhere to tone everything down. It's beautiful for that. Now we went down a bit of a rabbit hole on the puddles that I did along here before, and I can't remember if it was in this video. I think it was in a previous video, and I wasn't very happy with them, so I did do some resin puddles along there eventually. And one of the nice things about tile grout is that, much like normal soil, when it gets glued, it goes darker. So if you put a powdery one on and then you put glue on it, you can get that sort of I'm not quite dry mud, the edge of a puddle type look, which can look really realistic. So, okay. Ratty Rex, you could say the States are on 2 wooden sleepers, hence the gap. Do you know, I was watching the Clone Wars the other day, and I'm rewatching the Clone Wars. Love it. It's my favourite Star Wars. And General Grievous, who's the baddie, big alien baddie with 4 lightsabers, he gets on this train in the middle of his spaceship, and they're all jumping between trains, chasing each other, and he gets out at a door and it says, "Mind the gap." It just made me laugh. Anyway, there we go. I share that. Alan, any further plans to do another diorama incorporating your projector like the Jurassic Park model? Well, first of all, the Jurassic Park model fell apart in the building. I had to move it, and it didn't fit through the door, and the top came off the bottom, and it's in pieces at the moment. So yes, and I have been thinking a lot about it, and it's a Thunderbirds thing, so we'll talk about it on the next live stream, because it's something I'm really struggling with, how to do it cheaply. because the projector is an expensive thing to put in and it's at the front. And if you want something to be standalone, it's not a great solution. It's a great solution for doing a backdrop to something that's in front of it, but it's not a great solution for doing a permanent moving backdrop to a Thunderbird, for example. So I need to think very much about that. So yeah, definitely will be. So secret, do I 50-50 mix Mr. Colour for airbrushing? No, I do 1.5. So I do 1 paint, 1.5 thinner. So that's not 50-50. That's, I don't know, 50-75. That doesn't add up, I know, but hey, you know. There we go, 2/3 it is. I prefer a thin coat though. I like mine to be thin. I'm not a fan of over thick paint coats when I'm airbrushing. I like to build it up. Rockwell Lane, I like to think I'm quite good at weathering, but I struggle with weathering white things. Do you have any advice? White coach roofs in particular. I know what you mean. I tried to weather a black, so it's RDC silver with black because they're just covered in soot and it looks awful. It's so hard to get it right. So I think what I would say is when I weather white, I tend to use a light grey. If you look at, I use a lot of Tamiya, they're square bottles, Tamiya enamel washes. And whenever I'm doing enamel washes on, you know, for panel lining around nuts and bolts on white, I'll always use a dark grey. I would never use black anyway, I almost always use a dark grey. But I sometimes use the light grey if I want a lighter weathering. But I also would probably just try and use as much lighter colours on it, just because it gets, if you put too dark on it, it looks too stark. It's too much contrast. So yeah. Yeah, definitely not too dark is where I go on white. Or not too thick. So you can use a dark colour, but really thin your wash so it's really dilute, so it doesn't leave as dark a stain. Starship Filth I would use on white, but it would be really thin. So Sparky Amazon is great. I'll get Kathy's book tomorrow. Brilliant. Hey. And Digger says it's a good read, essential. Brilliant. Norm, congratulations, Lee. A hard-won battle. I'm not even sure. Oh, Lee's in the Discord. I'll say hello at the end when I log on later, Lee. But welcome. James, I probably missed the answer to this question on another 3 months ago. What happened to the plans to put a big model railway into the disused department store on Oxford Street? So it's yeah, just so yeah. I'm kind of losing the will to live on that one. It's going into diagonally opposite Primark on the first floor, and it's got a ground floor and a basement. It's still going ahead, but, and this is the but, the funding, so they signed before Worley. Worley was the last weekend in November. The funding was all signed, it was agreed. Funders haven't transferred the cash yet. They have had excuse after excuse after excuse, but they have not transferred the cash. So there is no cash in it, and until then, nobody can start any work. So everybody's kind of on hold. Everyone's getting very frustrated. It's supposed to be a new job for me as their creative director to you know, help build all this. And I spent most of last year, so they were supposed to be funded last Christmas, and then January it fell through. And then they were supposed to be funded sort of end of July, then it was end of August, then it was end of September, then it was end of October, then it was end of November, getting a theme here, then it was before Christmas, and now it's now. So I've just gone, right, if it happens, it happens. But I put a lot of plans on hold last year. I got offered another job, which I wasn't sure whether I wanted to do, but I might have done just to get the money. And I could do with the money, don't get me wrong. But doing YouTube does not pay enough money. I am not earning enough to live, so I need to do something else as well. And what I'm planning to do is some 3D print Kickstarter. And it will be in sci-fi because there's a market in Kickstarter for sci-fi, for terrain, for gaming. There's not a market for model railways when you go and look on Kickstarter. I don't want to do a monthly Patreon because that's a grind, and I can see people burning out of it, single creators burning out of it very quickly. And I don't have anybody else to do it with, really. I want to do 3D print design because I really enjoy that. And I actually have a big vision for the Sci-fi. I know exactly what I want to do. I've had it planned for almost a year. So now I'm doing mornings of 3D print work and afternoons of modelling, which all of last week was just video editing Port Dinorwic. Literally, that's all I did. And I'm trying to see, maybe I get a job in the next couple of weeks, and so I will be doing the new model railway miniature world in Oxford Street. Otherwise, I'll be doing a Kickstarter around about April, May probably. We'll have to see. But until, I don't know, I don't know, is the short answer. It's a long answer to a short question, wasn't it? So Secret Anorak, I know you enjoy your 3D printing. Have you used plant-based resin yet? I managed to get some cheaper than non-plant-based, and to be honest, I find it better. No, I'm sticking to the toxic stuff because I know exactly that it prints. And it's kidding you to say it's plant-based because it just can't be really good for the planet. And my worry with them saying this is water washable or it's eco this is people think they can put it down the sink. It's still toxic. It's still not good for you. And I have resins that I've been using for years and they work really well and I get great prints. And because I do 24/7 printing, actually the resin printers aren't printing at the moment, it's all FDM at the moment. I've got three FDM printers running 24/7 at the moment, all the time. They literally are down if I'm asleep and they stop, and that's it. But no, I like to know that if it's a toxic chemical, I treat it as a toxic chemical. I haven't done plant-based because the ones I've got work incredibly well. They're great detail and I love them. And actually on all the Discords I'm on, the ones that people go on, water washable gets toasted all the time by anybody who does it for a living. And I've not heard a good thing about plant-based. So I'm intrigued you say it's good because I've just heard so many bad things about it. And people get in touch with me all the time and say, you should do water washable. I'm like, why? Even, I use IPA, it's fine. I put a mask on, I treat it properly. I have all the health and safety sorted now, all the ventilation. So for me, if it doesn't smell, you don't know it's toxic, but it's still there. And I haven't had any of the headaches in the same way. The last one was mid-December, since I moved to wearing a mask every time I go in. I mean, at the moment I'm not printing resin, so the FDM's fine. And the builders are in and out all the time, so it's well ventilated in there for the wrong reasons. But no, I haven't. And I am intrigued that you find it's good, because I've never heard anybody say a good word for water washable, and I tend to put plant-based in with that. Stephen, I've heard it said that the hardest thing to do is light weathering. It's knowing when to stop. It is probably quite hard to do light weathering. I think I look at people doing weathered railways, and sometimes they get carried away with rust. And suddenly you look at it and you go, no railway would run something that rusty. It just wouldn't be safe. So yeah. You're not wrong, says Secret Anorex. Norm says sounds a bit dodgy. Not quite sure what sounds a bit dodgy, but light weathering, but I'm guessing it might be the plant-based resin. Mark Wilson, evening. And late again, I'll watch it all back. Oh, Mark, at least you're here. That's what counts. Stephen Ryder says, I'll support your Kickstarter when it launches. Even if I get the job, I am going to work on this alongside it, because ironically the job is for London and maybe rest of world, depending on how well London goes and if they decide to do the rest of the world. So if it's London, it would only be 18 months because they want to open mid-24. So it may be that I'm back into this position in 18 months. But I can see the advantages of both sides. On the plus side, it's a great job. It'd be designing an entire miniature world. I'd be learning so much, trying all this new stuff, working with suppliers in France and Japan. On the downside, I'd be away from home a lot. My mum's been ill, my sister's handicapped. I'm at home a lot and I sort a lot of things, and I wouldn't be around to support them in that. So, I'd be working away more. So there's plus sides and downsides to everything. So Lee Lavery says, looking on your website, the sci-fi monolith diorama looks amazing. And I'm thinking, I did a sci-fi monolith diorama? Or is that the ice cavern one? That did look cool. I love that. I did the ice wall for Tomb Raider in the same technique, more or less. Really cool. Tim, interesting. The narrow gauge 3D print community all use water washable. I mostly use it. We all get good results. It's interesting because I've never used it. All I know is when I go on to people who do it for a living, they all go, I wouldn't touch water washable. And I watched Miniature Wonderland on a video saying we used water washable, and then they show them washing it under the tap. And I was horrified because that stuff is still toxic and shouldn't be going down the sink. And my worry with water washable is what do people do with the water after they've washed it? Because my IPA never goes down the sink. It is evaporated outside, but mostly I've still got it and I reuse it. And I've got litres of old stuff that I sit in the sun and let it dry out, and then eventually let it sit out, and eventually I'll evaporate it out. But water takes so long to evaporate compared to IPA. So I just look at it and think, what do you do with your water after you've washed with it? Because it's not as obvious. It's a toxic, highly toxic solution that should not be going into the water courses. And that is what worries me with water washable. People don't understand it shouldn't be going down the sink because it implies it's okay if you can wash it in the sink. And it isn't. It's a hazardous substance and should be disposed of properly. I mean, you can take it down the tip if you want, but hey, our tip is like you have to book a month in advance to do it, and you can only go so many times a year. But anyway, that's my little rant about it. I do get very worried about people putting this stuff down the sink. It is not pleasant stuff. Right. Stephen says masks are uncomfortable but better than killer headaches. Yeah, I've got very used to the mask now. So it's actually quite a comfy mask until you've worn it for 3 or 4 hours when you're spray painting, and it's my spray painting one as well. Norm, the funding situation sounds dodgy. As far as I'm concerned, it is dodgy. I'm just waiting for it to appear, and when I get money in my bank, I'll be happy. With your skillets, Kathy, there's loads of jobs you could ace. Maybe. I was an accountant for years. In fact, the Radio Times billed me as accountant turned modeller. I think I talk about that. And I'm sure there's loads of stuff I could do. I actually quite enjoy the modelling element. I don't like the video editing element of my current role. I decided I didn't really want to write another book, having written one. It was a year, you don't earn that much, and, you know, it's okay. I'm just going to explain what I'm doing here, though. Why am I digging all of my sculpt mould out? Well, when I went and spoke to Digitrains, who were incredibly helpful, so shout out to Digitrains, in 2019 at Worley, I wanted to put sound in my Ginty, which I did, but the 009 loco, Rushton Hornsby, is far too small to put any sound in. So they gave me a speaker for free, and I bought the DCC sound chip. So it's not a motor chip, and I have 2 chips with the same number. One is the loco and one is the DCC sound. And the sound loco is under the layout and the speaker goes in here under the bushes at the back. And when it echoes around, you can't tell it's not coming from the little loco. In fact, it's got a great, it's proper sound, file for these, and it kind of and goes. And it may be, the video movie is actually turned off. I probably should turn the sound on it for a second. Let me just find my mouse. And you won't hear anything because there's no, but in a minute it should just sound up. And it's all the sounds off except for the one clip in a second where it comes up. So you might just suddenly hear it come into life. And the handset will be working then. Oh, the Ice Cave one. Yeah, no, Lee, that was a really cool. I'm really sold on that clear filament. I'm going to be using it in loads of projects. Anything I need to light, it's going to be lit with it. It's so cool. And filament is much cheaper. I want to do lava. So I want to do, imagine a lava tile or a lava base made with clear filament, and you put a light underneath, and then you paint the black of the bit around the lava black, and then your lava is lit. That would be so awesome. Yeah, I did wonder whether skills was just skills, but skill set, maybe. Ravenson says, you made a Halo diorama. I think this is the one with the monolith Lee is writing from. No, and it was a more recent one. It was a Deco Quest who did a terrain Kickstarter sci-fi one, and he said to me, what do you want? And it was something else. I think it was supposed to be like clone capsules, because clone's obviously cloned. And I said, oh yeah, please. So it was actually billed as a DecaQuest one. And then I put that ice cave around the outside. So I just printed him. It's a really cool design for the centre of the ancient monolith. So Lee says, I mostly reuse my IPA using the same method. You can filter out the sun-cured resin and reuse a few times. Yeah, I do that as well. Oh, can you hear the sound? That was it. That was your moment. There we go. So trouble, it was on fast forward, so that probably didn't sound that good. You'll hear it probably. So Secret Anorak, agree with the water washable stuff being rubbish and the fact it could end up down the sink. Plant-based seems better at lower temperatures. What's your favourite FDM printer for detail? So for FDM, love my presser, it's expensive. Elegoo sent me a Neptune 3 Plus. Not just because they sent it me, it's printed beautifully and it's big. I really like it. So I'd probably get a Neptune if I was having to buy one. I also have an Ender 3 that Creality sent me, and I don't think its quality of life bits are as good, but it prints just as nicely. I mean, when I say it's quality of life, it doesn't show you the whole name of the file. So if, like me, you're doing out of Cura and it puts on a 6-letter tag and an underscore to show you which printer, and I leave that on because I've got 3 printers, and if you load the wrong one, G-code onto the wrong one, it's a nightmare for some of them. Some of them will print and some of them just go and by the time you've got that, if you've got Food Stalls 1, Food Stalls 2, I'm printing Food Stalls at the moment for a Ferrix board, and you can't see it because 1 is off the screen and 2 is off the screen, so you can never tell which one's which. Whereas on the presser it scrolls through, and I think on the Neptune it must scroll because I always know which ones they are. Maybe it's just bigger so you can actually read it. I don't know. But it's certainly, and the auto bed leveling doesn't work on that one, but it does beautifully on the Neptune, and the presser does it every single time and has been robust. So my Neptune is my new favourite printer because it's bigger. So I'm doing a roundhouse for Thunderbirds for the next one, and I've just got it set up ready to print. It hasn't printed at all yet because it's doing a Ferrix board, as I said. Ferrix is the planet from Andor, and I don't really like Andor's planet as much, but it's got all these great buildings, and I wanted to print someone else's Kickstarter of terrain to see what it's like. So I'm just printing the whole Kickstarter worth of buildings. It's been fascinating to do. Very fascinating. So yeah. James, bush-based sound, that is intriguing. Yeah, you don't always have to, on a small layout, you don't actually have to put your sound in the locos. You could just put a speaker at the back and use DCC chip to do it if you've got small locos. Certainly for 00, it's not a problem to put sound in. Certainly on Steam locos, you've got the tender as well. But 009, you'd either have to put it in a wagon, which wouldn't be prototypical, or you'd have to, it just doesn't work. Lava, says James. Goodness, you'd have to have some sort of heat source to model the warmth. Ooh, just have a British summer. Stephen likes the idea of ambient sound birdsong. I did have ambient on my upstairs layout when I did it. You just put CDs, you can buy CDs and put them to go. So that's actually what I had. A lot of ambient and port noises and city noises and factory noises and just stuff like that. It was really fun to do. I actually had it on a sort of 6-channel, when you do surround sound, there's 5 or 6 channels. I had 5 or 6 channels coming out, and each one had a different soundtrack, so I could just play them in different locations. Norm says the sound nice. I just realised it's probably at 8 times, so it probably wasn't very good. Phil, Stephen, I'm going to integrating an ambient sound system in my layout. I feel that's really cool because people don't see mine in itself. I probably haven't bothered on this one. If I was doing exhibitions a lot, I might be tempted to put sea or something on, or it's an inlet, so maybe lapping water and some bird sounds, but whether you'd hear them, I don't know. Stephen Ryder, who's Kickstarter? Do you know, I had another American ask, well, not another American, I had an American ask me that yesterday when I sent out my email from my website subscribers. I'm like, it's an American company. So Kickstarter.com it's a way of getting money in, that you don't have a shop. You run a campaign, and if people pay you enough money, it goes ahead, and if they don't, you don't do it. So it's a way of drumming up interest, And certainly in the tabletop game, there's a huge market on there. So it's a really good place. So what you can do is you can run a Kickstarter and then you can put it on My Mini Factory afterwards. And there's 2 big marketplaces there for people who buy them and then they print terrain boards to play wargaming. And I've just started Star Wars Legion, which I'm really enjoying. I've played like 3 games so far and they helped me for the first 2, so I won, and then I was trounced on the 3rd one when I was on my own. But it's quite hard to find people around me to play with. So I've been playing with Ellie, and I'm playing the Republic clones, basically, because, you know, I love Gar. And Clone Wars, Star Wars, I was a Trekkie until I watched Clone Wars, and then I converted over to a Warsy. And I'm a huge fan. And actually, over Christmas, to try and actually have a break, I played Fallen Order, Battlefront 2, and I've just got Knights of the Old Republic to play next. So I just finished Battlefront 2 this afternoon. So I'm really getting into Star Wars. So there'll be a sort of sci-fi element to them. And, you know, I've always loved sci-fi. I grew up on it. It's what I watch on TV all the time. It's a huge inspiration to me. But Kickstarter is just a way of accessing people without having to have a shop or without... And I will put the shop on My Mini Factory probably because of the VAT. Selling digital into Europe, I just don't want to touch that. I took it all off my website because it's too hard. Nobody who does websites does the VAT very well for European, and I'd have to register in Germany if I sold £1 in Germany. It's ridiculous. So I just let My Mini Factory or Kickstarter worry about that. So Lee, would you recommend watching Andor? I've heard mixed reviews. So I would recommend watching The Bad Batch. Loving The Bad Batch. Andor was slow. I would recommend having it on in the background and watching it. It's like 12 episodes long, is it? Or 9 episodes, and it's like in threes. And the last one has stuff happening and the first 2 don't really. And I really enjoyed Rogue One. It's my favourite of the Star Wars movies, probably. I really did enjoy Rogue One. But I felt it was slow. But I'd still watch it. If you're into Star Wars, I'd watch it because it's got great world building. It doesn't have any Force users, so no Jedi at all. But actually, if you're a Star Wars fan and haven't watched the Clone Wars or Bad Batch, I'd recommend those. People go with their cartoons or anime if they're posh, but the amount of emotion, I sob through the end of the Clone Wars every time, and I know what's going to happen. The amount of emotion they pack in is just, and it is the best Star Wars. Full stop, in my view. But there we go. And then let's see what everyone else said about it. So, Monique's arrived from Brisbane. Morning. Morning, Monique. Right, okay. Tamsin said there's a Neptune Max as well now, 420 by 420 by 500 volume. That sounds nice. I think mine's 300 by 300 or something. It's really, I would like a really big one to do a whole helmet, but I want to print Captain Rex from the Clone Wars, that's why. And I need to finish my Titanfall one first though. I replayed Titanfall 2 over Christmas as well. It's only about 8 hours. And I know where to go everywhere all the time, so not too bad. And I played it on easy because Mum was watching, so it was quicker. So Giant Boar Monster says, Lee, it's a little slow, he's talking about Andor, but gets better. By the end it was pretty outstanding, actual depth. I would say that, it's for adults. I mean, the Clone Wars is supposedly for kids, but it's got a lot of adult content. You watch people get murdered all the time, but there we go. And actually, Norman's made a point. The terrain tutor used Kickstarter for his book, very successful. It is. There's a lot of terrain on there. So because it's a marketplace where people check, it's a good marketplace. And that's one of the reasons I'm picking that, because I've tried YouTube for a couple of years. It's not worked. I waited a year to get this new job, which then hasn't materialised yet. So this time I have to get something that works, and that is a known marketplace. So yeah. Rex, Monique, how is tomorrow shaping up? Is it worth me waking up or just staying in bed in the UK? Oh, I've got to be up at 8 for the builders. And then Phil at 10. Alan says, Indiegogo is another crowdfunding site. Main difference is you still get the money even if you don't reach your target. I think the idea, Alan, is that Kickstarter, I don't know Indiegogo, but Kickstarter has a massive following on it, and so does My Mini Factory. So, yeah. Stephen, I'd like to see how you do the basing for your Star Wars Legion bases. Oh, Stephen, I am so conflicted on my Star Wars Legion bases. I would prefer not to have bases at all, but sadly you need them for gameplay. So I wondered about making my clones removable, but no, it's not going to work. They just fall over, the running ones especially, and some of them aren't held on by much. So I think what I'm going to do is each squad is going to get a different base. It's not at all cohesive, but if they're going to stand out on a board, they may as well stand out from each other. And I'm struggling to tell them apart. I really am. Especially the Phase 1 clones, because they're all white apart from the captain. So what I was originally going to do was do markings on the bases, and I think I'm going to do a dark grey, maybe slightly metallic, I don't know, a dark grey graphite rim. And then on top, I'm going to use it as an opportunity to do some smaller videos. And I'm going to be using them to demonstrate snow, or, let me go generic: snow, lava, ice, desert, water, mud, all of those things. And I'm going to do a tile for like a terrain tile, because I'm doing 3-inch and 4-inch tiles here, so I could easily do some of those. So tiles and sort of bases, and I'll do a squad. And then they don't look at all cohesive. They look like a complete mishmash, and it'll probably do my head in. But I'm also thinking of painting each squad for a different unit, because you have to do unit colours. So watching the Clone Wars, I'm going, oh, I could do a wolf pack. Oh, I could do those ones. They're like in maroon. Oh, those ones are purple because they're Mace Windows, and they like, oh, and I could do yellow, and Cody's coming out soon. I could do the 332nd, the 501st, the 212th. I'm just like, yeah, all over the place. So it's a good question. You'll find out when I do it on YouTube, probably. Because I haven't quite decided yet. So Monique says, sunny and warm already at 7 a.m. Oh, that's nice. Alan says, Rogue One is the best of the Disney Star Wars movies. To be honest, I wasn't a fan of Star Wars as a child. I didn't really rave about the original 3, and the prequels underwhelmed me. I really didn't like Anakin. I was like, go bad already, you're just so annoying. And Hayden Christensen is downright creepy. There is no way a woman like Padme will fall for someone who's been touching her up. I can promise you that. So all I will say is I only liked Anakin when he was in the Clone Wars, and at that point I realised what George Lucas was after, but it just didn't come across in the prequels. Just didn't. But yeah, I wasn't a great fan of the original trilogy either. So for me, Clone Wars is my favourite Star Wars. And so Disney or George Lucas aside, I'm not a Star Wars movie fan. I do prefer TV programmes with long arcs. And I'm loving rewatching the Clone Wars and seeing how much Rex is in it. Because at the beginning, you don't know which characters are going to be important to you. And by the end, you're like, Rex and Ahsoka, my 2 favourite characters. At the beginning, I wasn't in that place. So to go back and rewatch them, knowing them that they're now my 2 favourite Star Wars characters, is really cool. So Lee says, I loved Rogue One. I also vaguely know the guy who played Darth in it. Friend of a friend ×3. Woo, that's cool. Monique, if you saw the original Star Wars in 1977, you'd say that was the best movie from the whole story. I wouldn't actually. A lot of people say it's Empire Strikes Back. I saw it on TV in the 80s. I was only 3, 4 when it came out, so I was just a bit too young. But I made my dad buy a TV to watch it when we were on a canal boat when it first came out in UK TV in the early 80s. And that was the first time I'd seen it. And I just have to say I was a Trekkie. I prefer, as I said, long burn TV shows. And I don't really like Luke Skywalker. Han Solo was okay. Leia was okay. Chewbacca was good. R2 and C-3PO, whatever. It was okay. But, I'd rather do something like Fallen Order and get into Cal Kestis, where you play a long time as one character. So just horses for courses. But I do like The Mandalorian. That's what really got me into Star Wars again, was The Mandalorian. And then I watched the Clone Wars over lockdown. Sold. James, I like my mini factory. I have 1 or 2 things on there, mostly rolling stock related. It's just expensive to put a shop up. It's $25 a month, so I need to have plenty to sell. So yeah. What are these packages, says Norm? Oh, were they the lights that went on the front? Were they the red things? They were lights, lamps for the front of the loco. Norm, you're American, so UK steam locos do not have headlights. They just have marker lamps. They're very small. They just drive in the dark. Very scary, I suspect. And those are from Model U. All of these people, I should be plugging Model U here. They actually sent me the slate set, which is really good, but it's for splitting and dressing slate, and they don't do that at the dock, so I got it after I'd finished this anyway. But these are all Model U. They get historical costumes from a supplier, and then they dress people up and take 3D scans of them, and you can get them as prints. Absolutely stunning, hands down. Some of the best figures, certainly in the UK, the best figures I get. And I've got a couple for other dioramas and things, and I've always loved them. You can get them in almost every scale because they're printed to order, a lot of them. So you'll get 00 over here, no problem, sort of in stock. But if you want obscure scales, you can get those as well. So really, really good. And you can get me on there. Model U have a scan of me that he took at Worley one year, and then when Great Model Railway Challenge came out, they did all the judges. They redid everyone else, but he used my scan from Worley. So that's me. You can get a little mini me and put me on your layout. Paint me however you like. So Brockwell, I love the Model U figures. Alan Barker, if you're into space battles and blasters, and Andor probably won't be your favourite series, but it does an okay job of character development and laying the ground for Rogue One. You need to bear with it. You definitely do. So Stephen, I support your plan and offer clear bases. I have some. They're not... How can I put this? For gameplay, they're okay, but I don't know. When I had some, I was just like, I'm not sure now. So I don't know. I've got some, but I'm not sure I'm going to use them. I think I'll just go with the standard ones. And the reason for that, Stephen, there's a big reason. I want to magnetise them. I've got magnet trays. I've magnetised the bases. They all stay in there. It's how I store them. So I can't magnetise clear ones. And I want to magnetise for storage. So I'm not doing clear for that reason. So, Stephen just made Mary's bedtime drink Ovaltine with a small tot of brandy. That's nice. Alan Dawson, Rogue One is also one of the darkest Star Wars movies, as the central heroes give away the ending there. For those who haven't seen it, it is a very good movie. Yeah. Are you interested in watching Avatar 2? Avatar 1 didn't float my boat that much, and I haven't seen Avatar 2. I'll see it when it comes out on the TV, but I'm not rushing to see it. Monique says she hasn't seen the Clone Wars series. You've missed out. Ratty Rex says Blake 7 for the win for me. I watched that as a child. I haven't seen it recently. I wonder if it holds up still. So Alan, stating the obvious, if you haven't seen it by now, you're not going to. Yeah, I don't know. People might are following this if we all rave about it. Oh, Ben Powell 009, it's Red Dwarf. Good classic British TV there. Stating the obvious, I've seen it. Right, Lee Lavery, are you up to date with Star Trek? Discovery has its moments. I hate Discovery. I really can't stand it. I watch it, but I'm just like, really? Michael Burnham saves the galaxy again. It is not the Michael Burnham show. And she's a mutineer. She should be in jail. It's the only place she should be is prison. She should not be a captain. You don't get to mutiny and then get to make captain. I'm really sorry. Just no. No. Picard is decidedly mad, but Strange New Worlds is great. I've seen Strange New Worlds. I've actually met Anson Mount and have a signed photo of me dressed up as Emperor Giorgio next to him. So cool. Anson Mount, yeah, really cool as Pike. I think he's brilliant. I really enjoyed Strange New Worlds. I thought he was very good. Prodigy was good as well. Lower Decks is okay, has its moments. So yeah. So Max and Dad won. Really. They don't have lights in the UK? I didn't know that. Interesting. Yeah, they don't. They do now, obviously, on trains. But if you look at any steam loco, they don't. They just have the odd marker light on the front. But no. And one of the big differences in America and other parts of the world in the UK is we fence all our track, generally. So, and trespassing is a, fine. So there shouldn't be anything on the track, theoretically. But yeah, barreling along. And they go faster than big American locos do generally. But yeah. So Alan, agreed on The Mandalorian. What did you think of Book of Boba Fett, also known as The Mandalorian Season 2.5? I love the Season 2.5 bit. I've never been a Boba Fett fan, I guess because I'm not into the original trilogy. Never been a Boba Fett fan, so I never really got it. I love Fennec Shand. She's really cool. I always liked May in Marvel Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and she was the cavalry in that. And she was Mulan as well. So Ming-Na Wen, very good actress, or actors, they have to be now. So best TV sci-fi series outside the Treks. To me, that's The Expanse. Oh, and Norm says The Expanse. Yep, that's definitely The Expanse. It's really, really good. And I wouldn't, it's a shame it's on a sort of permanent break at the moment. So Mark, the director of Rogue One, went to the same school as me in Nuneaton, although I left a few years previously. Good school then. The Expanse is really, really, if you haven't seen The Expanse, it's like realistic sci-fi. It's really good. And I mean, obviously it's sci-fi, so it's not that realistic in places, but it's got a lot of politics and stuff in it as well. Monique, as for Kickstarter, I bought quite a few wargaming building sets to print scale down and print on my 00 gauge layouts. Yeah, it's really good for stuff like that. Jam, happy to hear that about Model U. I just ordered the Planet Industrial Victory Loco crew, who looks sufficiently like James and Stephen from Planet Industrials. Probably are. Let's just go there. Blake 7, oh, you missed the apostrophe. Max, will you be getting back into HO model railroading? So I have I have 6 boxes of HO models upstairs. So yes, but the live streams for this year are Thunderbirds, because we put a little vote up on live streams a couple of times ago, and Thunderbirds beat out doing a Craftsman kit. I've just done a micro layout. I don't have enough room, so it's unlikely to be this year. I do want to do a main seaport or something like that next, but I don't want it to just be like everybody else's, so I need to think what I want. So there's definitely a load of stuff that I need to do on it. But at the moment, with potentially having a job and doing a Kickstarter and doing YouTube, my YouTube will be smaller stuff. It won't be anything as big as a layout for a while. But yeah, definitely. Tim, you can't be Red Dwarf. Well, I probably could, but it's a good shout. Alan, I met one of the Death Troopers from the Mandalorian Season 1 finale in Atlanta in September. That's so cool. That is cool. Giannosa Espineta, whatever his name is. Giovanni Esposito. His kids were like, you can't hurt baby Goku. Baby Yoda as it was at the time. So that was funny. Brockwell Lane says, I took a gamble and ordered the misprint pack from Model U and was happily surprised by what I got. All used layout with a little repair. Oh, that's good. I didn't know they even did that. So Adrian says, I'm watching the original Star Trek on Bing right now. The best characters in the original. I can't rewatch the original. I just find Kirk so misogynist. Just literally, he does my head in. He's so arrogant. I'm just like, no. So I did a rewatch of every Star Trek over lockdown except the original series. And actually Enterprise was a lot better the second time around. Voyager still can't get on with, really. But there we go. Max didn't know that. I'm not quite sure what he didn't know, but he's learnt something new. Moonbase 3. I don't remember Moonbase 3. I remember Moonbase Alpha from Space 1999. I remember enjoying that. And Mark says, I watched Star Trek The Centre Seat documentary on Freevee. Very interesting. Apparently, if it wasn't for Lucille Ball, it would never have happened. I didn't even know who Lucille Ball was until I went to Atlanta for an NMRA convention, and they had a Lucy Ball impersonator there who happens to be the wife of one of the directors and is a lovely lady. So I learnt a lot about them. Jam, yes, Expanse for the win. +1 for Expanse. Realistic apart from the blue stuff. Yeah, that's true. Protomolecule. Says Alan, if you watch TV sci-fi, did you watch Space Above and Beyond? I did. Tamsin thinks Expanse was a good series too. We're getting a lot of votes for Expanse. If you haven't seen it, you've missed out. It was on Prime for it. It was on Netflix and then it was on Prime. So I think it's still on Prime now. Max says, awesome. That's cool. You're going to be getting back into it though. Yeah, just don't hold your breath for it being this year. I think is where I say, because I've got too much stuff invested in it not to. I don't really remember Space Above and Beyond. I know I watched it, but I can't remember much about it. But only got 1 season. Maybe that's why I can't remember much. There's so many 1-season sci-fis I've watched. Dark Matter, Killjoys, all of those ran for a few seasons. They were all recent and good. Killjoys got weird, but hey. So Raverson says, I have the first 3 seasons from The Expanse. When I start watching the first episodes, I cannot stop until I've seen all 3 seasons non-stop. I bet that. Yeah, I can imagine. For All Mankind on Apple TV was great. I haven't seen it. It's the one streaming I don't have really. Did watch Halo. Wasn't Halo. That was on Paramount Plus. Isn't Halo. Back to this for a bit though, because you're watching me paint people for ages. I've done a base coat. I've painted some shadows on, and I may have dry brushed the highlight, but really I just mostly did mid-tones and shadows again. I haven't really used washes. I tended to paint the shadows that are on there at the moment, but then I put on some, you can see them on the side there, Army Quick Shades, I think they are. They're shadow sort of things, but they're a thin gel-like wash almost, which is easier to control. It doesn't just flood everywhere. And you can paint it into the shadows a bit better. But it's good on big flat surfaces because it doesn't just run off. And alternative space race. Okay, right. And the ramifications from that. 3 seasons so far. Okay, that's interesting. I haven't seen it. I haven't seen Foundation either that's on it. Stephen, it would have been cool to be a model maker for Thunderbirds, but just imagine building a model just to have it blown up. I guess when you do it for a job, you're not as attached, because a lot of them got taken home by the main designer and his kids trashed them while playing with them. Dark Matter ends on a cliffhanger, so frustrating, isn't it just? Tamsin, who just thought of another oldie, UFO. Do you remember the Invaders with the body snatchers, or the Invaders with the bent little finger? Loads of classics. Flash Gordon. Ravison, that first episode of The Expanse, wow, feels like it's going to be a slow burn, then that happens at the end. Yeah. So, Phil Parker says, sci-fi people need to look out for the small space show that takes place in Hanslope every year. Matt Irvin brings the contents of his garage, basically all the 1970s TV models from Who, Blake 7, etc. Oh, when is that, Phil? I definitely will need to go and have a look. So Max just asked me, am I into Star Trek more than Star Wars? I was. These are wrong. These are my Telegraph polls. They're way too big and out of scale. Don't ask me what I was thinking. I was in a rush and they were the only bits of wood I could find. They are just way too big. And so I've taken them off now. Aaron, one of my patrons, pointed that out. He's like, look at the size of them. I'm like, you're so right. So anyway, enjoy making them. And if they were for an O gauge layout, they'd be perfect. I was a Trekkie, and then they did Discovery. And then they did Picard. Strange New Worlds. But I'm looking at what's out there now. I would much rather watch a Disney Star Wars, than Paramount Star Trek show. Hands down. I'm afraid that's where it is. And none of the Marvels have really excited me at all, any of the TV shows. So I've kind of gone off Marvel recently. I think when Iman popped his clogs, I just kind of went off. Yeah. Stating the obvious, shame that Space and Beyond suffered the Fox curse of cancelling popular series. Oh, tell me about Firefly. They got the movie in Serenity, but that was excellent. Firefly, superb TV show. And I know Joss Whedon's been Me Too'd now, but Dollhouse was a really weird one. Which got a lot better after the first series got through. And they were going to cancel it, but they didn't dare to cancel another one of his. But yeah, it's so annoying when they cancel something good. Yeah, David Vincent, the architect from The Invaders. Digger remembers that. So Max says, my wife and I just watched The X-Files all over again. Got to find a UFO model. I haven't seen The X-Files since I originally watched them, so... Digger isn't officially ancient. I remember watching that as well. But I think I watched it on repeat. It was a 70s thing, and I would have probably watched it in early 80s rather than 70s. I don't know. So Max says, I don't know. I personally think Disney kind of ruined Star Wars. Not all of them, but Disney has destroyed Star Wars and Marvel. People say that. George Lucas wrote the prequels. They are by far the worst movies. And George Lucas wrote those. Come on, guys. Stop saying that George Lucas is amazing and it was all bad before Disney got there. Look at the prequels. Just look at them, okay? And then tell me that Disney ruined Star Wars. George Lucas did that all on his own with the prequels. And then he had to sell it out to Disney because they did so badly. Come on. I don't really like the sequels that much. I think there was too much of a swing They lost their plot. They had a director, that Rian Johnson, who just wasn't in the Star Wars vibe. When they have Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau in charge, those guys are real Star Wars fans, and that is always excellent. And I think the best TV out there is something like The Mandalorian, and that's Disney. So I'm not knocking Disney, because A, it's putting out Star Wars series, which nobody else would be doing otherwise, and B, it's always been kind of like different. I mean, Star Wars has always not been as good as people think, would be my view. But there we go. There we go. Is the Orville worth a look? Oh, absolutely. Robert, backing. I love the Orville. It is better than Trek. At one point, it was the best Trek that was out there. It's really, really good. Get past the first few episodes that have got really puerile humour, and you'll be fine once they stop all the male anatomy humour. It gets a lot better. They are very serious, very good by the end. So Andor is the best Star Wars since the original trilogy? I wouldn't say so. I would say Mandalorian or Clone Wars. I think Clone Wars is the best since the original trilogy. But, you know, the beauty of Star Wars is Disney fund enough series that if you don't like this particular one, there will be another one you do like. And that is a very beautiful thing. The original V was good. Yeah, and the remake wasn't bad. Marvel is way overdone and watering down the characters. They're nothing like the comics. I don't ever do the comics, so I have no desire. But since they've lost Iron Man, I felt like they lost the backbone of the Avengers. I was never a Captain America fan because he was too goody two-shoes and a little hypocritical, I felt. I was always Team Stark. I actually have a t-shirt saying Team Stark. But I think it's gone downhill since Endgame. I think they peaked. So Stephen, in the Star Wars universe, Y-Wing pilots are like guys in red jumpers on Star Trek. Doomed. That's very true. So back to the railways for a bit, because not everybody tuned in for talk about classic sci-fi, though we end up on that a lot, because I do watch a lot of it. As you can see at the moment, I'm going around filling gaps and adding details. I'm still on these oversized bases, but thankfully I did them with magnets because I wasn't 100% sure whether I wanted them. Thought they might be in the way for the photos. So I put them on these little styrene bases and glued a magnet on and put them on top, and there's a magnet that I've drilled into the base of the layout. So I just have to put them, there's a little flat spot there, and they magnet, and I did that for, they're near the front, it's easier to transport them if they're not attached. So if you have things near the front of the layout that are delicate, my front bridge comes off, it's magneted on, and my front, these two telegraph poles also come off. If you don't want them on there for a photo because it's just in the way, you can take them off. So I really recommend magnetising stuff. It's a really useful way to actually play around. And I'm glad I magnetised these rather than gluing them in, because when I decided they were way too big, I can just get rid of them and they're now on top of the layout rather than on it. So Y-Wing pilots are like Red Clayman says, they're doomed. I think what Disney has done with Star Wars has been absolutely fantastic. I'm with Phil there. I think he's done really good. Mando, Rogue One, Andor, loving it. Definitely there. Someone else like V, Langton Road. Lee, I'm ashamed to say that I know people who like the Star Wars prequels. I actually watch them on rewatch, and once you've watched the Clone Wars, there's so much more depth to them because you understand what they were doing. But until you've seen the Clone Wars, I don't think they're that great. I love Jar Jar Binks though. Can I just say, I love Jar Jar Binks. I'm a Binks fan. Cling film is another good way when you're gluing scenery to the base of things to not stick it to your main layout. So here I'm doing a magnet, but I want this to fit in place there. And I'm putting tile grout over the top to add as a little like bedding it in to hide that white disc. And cling film all the way. It's really useful. So Max, yes, that's true. I'm a huge Star Wars fan. We went to Florida over last summer, went to Star Wars theme park at Disney, and that was so awesome. I'd love to go. I'd love to go to Galaxy's Edge. And he's also got a vote for V in there. Langton Road, childhood favourites were Terrorhawks and Starfleet. Loved Saturday mornings. I think you must be a bit younger than me because I don't remember those particularly. Clayman, they cancelled the remake, but I was getting into it. Yeah, I think they cancelled it too early. So everyone loves the shows. Original V with Robert Eglin, says Tamsin. Clayman, I love anything Jerry Anderson. I'm going to go here. I just rewatched all the Thunderbirds to do the dioramas for the next set of live streams. And I rewatched the new ones before I rewatched the old ones. I prefer the new ones. Maybe because I'm now used to today. Scott is a real bossy boots and just so short and rude in the original. And I just like the people more in the new one. I feel like they were nicer characters. So I am definitely a fan of the newer ones. I really like the pods as well. And the ships had some cool upgrades. And the bigatures for it, although the ships are CGI, the bigatures were done by Weta. So if you Google, Thunderbirds Argo Weta mid-workshop, you'll see them. And there's some really cool stuff. Adam Savage does a visit. It's well worth watching that video because they're really cool. Okay, where are we? Joe 90. Yep, that's a good one. The remake of V was okay, but I didn't last long on TV, but the OG was so cool. I used to tape them to VHS tapes, still have them somewhere. I don't think I could play a VHS tape anymore. And I read the book, and I remember reading the book, and that was cool. This is the gate. I had to cut it. I actually had to resize, if you remember, the building so that this gate would fit. There's a lot of painting going on here of details. All these little details take forever. But they make this. I wish I'd weathered this a little bit better. It looks all right on that side. But the other side, I've just stuck that on and I didn't weather it at all. I'm not quite sure why not. It's just got that sign on. And it's actually got, I think I just forgot, and it's glued on now. Oh well. And it's in shot from the side. I do take that photo a bit. Right, so where were we? Jerry Anderson's The Secret. Loved all his stuff. That's cool. Tom L, what sort of mounts do I use? These are just generic 5x2s off Amazon. If you really want them to stick well, then you want N52s or something, which cost a bit more, or N42s, but the generic ones will work okay-ish. Hi Stefan, don't worry, you're here. That's the important thing. So Alan, I rewatched Terrorhawks recently and I really should have left it in my childhood. Sometimes I think that. Mind you, over lockdown we watched Voltron, the remake, and I'm like, I quite enjoyed it. It might be aimed at kids, but if it's on in the background and I'm working, it's fine. I've just finished watching The Witch from Mercury this morning and I have to watch it because it's subtitled Japanese and it's the latest Gundam. If you're not into Gundam, then there's thousands of them. And it was such a cliff. I was like, no, come on. So yeah, that's out again in April, the next series. So yeah, a lot of things don't age well, Clay. You do watch things for the models, but yeah. I don't think Blake Seven or some of those early Doctor Who's either have aged well. Stephen Cameron, Fab 1 in Thunderbirds was actually approved by Rolls-Royce. I'm looking forward to a programme with a Tesla Harley Davidson hover bike. Well, that would be cool. I do like hover bikes. Max, how about doing a Voltron model? 4D printed Voltron haven't painted yet, but Voltron was awesome as a kid growing up. So I've got a model of the new one. I actually got the Funko Pop of it instead and just decided that would do me. It was quicker. I really like them. I got a couple of the guys, I think, and then I just gave up on buying Funko Pops. So yeah, it was, yeah, I thought about it and it's on the list, but I want to get my Titanfall mech done before that, really. Terrorhawks, that music, however, awesome. Yeah, I wondered what the 4D was, but I'm guessing 3D. Starfleet was about 81, 83, 80s, Terrorhawks 83, 86. So it depends what age it was aimed at. I went to senior school in 84, so I may not have been watching. I mean, I remember G-Force as the sort of thing, which was like Power Rangers before Power Rangers. They all transformed and put their ships together. Stuff like that. And when I talk, I'm 50 in a couple of months, so I'm at that end of it. It's probably a little bit late. So Lee, I agree with watching foreign language media. I saw Dark a couple of years ago, which is German, and had to concentrate or else I'd completely lose the plot. It is a nightmare, isn't it, when you're trying to watch subtitles? Yeah. So Mark has a model world set up for tomorrow at 8. You have a model world, Hornby model world set up for tomorrow at 8. Yes, I need to remind everyone, 8 o'clock tomorrow, you can see this on TV. It'll probably only be 5 minutes, but it is there. Now, I meant this bridge to be pulled from the back so you could open and close it, but in reality, the gearing was always very jerky and it just didn't have enough oomph. So I just do it by hand, and I took the gears out. It's stiff enough it will stay up, and it's stiff enough it will stay down in the right position. but it didn't. I tried 8 bases with gears and stuff, and I never got it to totally work. So there we go. That display is looking awesome. Foliage 11 of 10 as usual. The foliage on this is so simple. It literally is just knock medium green over the stuff I ripped off my old layout. Oh, they only ever start at 5. Jedi mind trick, you don't get to start at 10. 5, 4. I mean, I probably, when we'll talk about Thunderbirds next time, because it's the first one will be about designing it. So Mark used to watch the original Thomas the Tank Engine series for the actual models as I was in my teens and too old for the time. I remember watching Ivor the Engine as a kid, and apparently that came out in 76. So there we go. Gears for the bridge. Could you not just use a servo? I was deliberately not using, James, any servos, because the reason the first one went in the skip was I got too complex. Everything was servoed, there was loads of weird point work, because it's double flanged. All of this is should be stub, not throw bar like this is. It should all be stub. And so on this one, I was like, if it isn't done with a rod, it's not getting done. So DCC's there, it's simple. Everything else is rod thrown with maybe a micro switch or something. But for this, no, I didn't want it. I didn't want that complexity. And to be honest, it's down because there's a lorry on it, and the lorry has to come onto it or it blocks the 009 track. So yeah, just it was a choice for this one, not to do anything complex digitally. So Mark Wilson, I used to watch the original, right, we've done that one. Okay, yeah, I probably watched all of that as well. So JK, the benefit of growing up in a non-English speaking country, reading subtitles is something I don't even notice anymore, only annoying if you're multitasking. I rarely watch just TV though. I'm normally 3D print designing at the same time or doing other stuff. So I struggle with it. Don't worry, Jedi. Put it up as 543. It was very funny. Ivor the Engine, definitely. And he did have a dragon in his tank. And it was a Welsh dragon. Yeah, so he'd have a curl in his tail. That's how you tell the Welsh dragons. They have a little loop in their tail. That's what my mum tells me, and she's Welsh. Thomas was cool. And those models were big. They were big models. It was cool models. Ivor the Legend, definitely. Captain Pugwash. I remember Captain Pugwash. I actually have a Captain Pugwash book, which I think I've got rid of now. But I had a Captain Pugwash, yeah. So, the only steam loco to sing in a choir, we're back on Ivor there. And Ivor would fit very well in this kind of area. So Tamsin remembers the show. Another cult program from my youth was Monkey. That was wild. They've remade that. I haven't watched it, but I remember Monkey. And another name drop, my friend Tony made the official licensed Ivor the Engine board game. Very nicely. So here I left all the people on the bases to paint them. So I just need to sort of cut them off, clean up their feet, and then paint out any boots that were scuffed in that process. Monkey based on the classic Chinese text Journey to the West. Yes. I approve of Welsh mothers. Mine is too, said James. Yes, she's very, very good. Idris the Dragon. Welsh cakes are a joy. Yes, Welsh cakes are a joy, James. So, we are now on to the final here. Now, you can see the 009 does run. I put extra weight in for this, but it is just a little bit. And I was really worried that they didn't look very prototypical until Tim told me that they were running them on the Bar Lake Railway and they derailed on a straight bit of track. So these were they were meant to be hand pushed. And actually, all of these little spurs, they would have been hand pushed into. They wouldn't have been shunted or switched, depending which side of the Atlantic you're on. They wouldn't have been pushed by the loco as much. So there's definitely a piece here where, if they're not very good, then that's okay. They're not very good. Yeah, that's just, they're prototypical. And this is the Ginty. You haven't got the sound on this. You'll get it on the YouTube video. But scale speed, going along, the guy's there, and everyone's taking all the photos. The dogs have come out. Oh, the man's fallen over. Oh, bless. That's in probably every single one. I'm not sure whether I've picked him up. I wonder if he's still fallen over. I must go and look. Yeah, Phil, check, all the men are standing. I picked 4 or 5 of them up, but they do have a habit. I've only black tacked them on, they're not glued, because, you know, I might move them or change them or something. Though this is a fairly set scene. And I've taken off the telegraph poles because they're way too tall and thick. But yeah, there he is. He's there taking his photo. And yeah, that sign, you see, just looks a bit plain. That danger, it really did need a bit of weathering. A bit hard to reach now. But you can see everybody just standing there watching this last steam train go out. And I played a bit with putting black and white on the YouTube video. And if you're a patron, you've already seen it. So that's pretty cool. And what is nice about this is these photos and whatever are all done through those little cutouts. So you can get some nice little views. Look at those. I don't think my wheels are that round, sadly. And for couplers, I know I mentioned this in the rolling stock one last time, but the couplers are literally just the chains, the Smith's chains over the hooks that come on there. So nothing in here is great for exhibitions, but it looks great for a layout like this. Just slightly desaturated on the colours as well. Oh, Tim's got a Welsh grandfather. That's cool. My mum's great-grandfather was a guide on Cadair Idris. That's where they came from. And then they all went down south for the work. South Wales. So Max, it's funny, none of my friends ever knew I was huge into model railroading as a kid. My wife never knew it until we got married. She was my junior high girlfriend. You kept that one quiet. The locomotive is a joy. Which one? They're both really cool. What really annoys me, thanks Norm, he says it's looking good. And Patrick says great smooth running. What really annoys me is I had some really great capacitors in the 009 one, which helped it run over the join between the fill yard and the track, and they stopped working just before it was due to be shown. And I resoldered them 4 or 5 times, and I've done a whole factory reset and everything, and it's still not great, which is why I say the 009 needs some work. And I chatted to Digitrains at Worley, and they said, we've got a new set of capacitors coming out. So I was going to pull that, it's only black tacked in, I was going to pull the chip out, because I can get it out easily, and just look what is there and send them a picture and say, what should I replace this with? So they are cool. So, where are we? Great smooth running. Clayman Choo Choo. Yep, definitely. Max, neither did my childhood best friend who is now my boss. They both asked me why I never said anything. I guess I didn't want to be judged. Yeah, I had a friend once who, I say friend, very small f, and we're at a party here, and I said, oh, I do model railways. And she laughed at me in the face. And I was like, I must have looked quite shocked. She said, oh, I'm not laughing at you, I'm laughing with you. And I'm like, I'm not laughing. And that was kind of the response you used to get. So I understand why people don't say things. Now I've been on TV, it's a bit hard to hide it, you know. Tanda says, read Monkey, the book is actually much better than the series. Same goes for the water margin. I don't know the water margin, but Monkey was just kitsch, I felt. Tim, the new rake is a bit flaky. It's why they don't come out on the Barlow Lake galas. One day we're going to fit the whole lot with roller bearings. They're literally rods, and the axles are only that long, and they're to go over this Padan railway I mentioned at the beginning. They sit them across onto a normal railway truck wagon, and so they sit over the top of the wheels. So the kind of wheel goes through the middle where you'd put the axle sort of from the wagon beneath. So they've got these really short angles, and they're double flanged. So they're real. I did 3D print some proper ones to go on there, but you can't run them with these points. So when I changed off doing the stud points with the moving sort of frogs, which are just like a bit of track that moved, when I went for the simpler track on Mark II, I had to go to normal wheels. And Tim sent me these, and I don't think I cleaned them up well enough. So they're definitely not quite round, the wheels. The ERF locos lorries were really cool, secret. Yeah, they were really good. That you can actually see that they're the type that are there, though I don't think it was from Walsall, the one that was there. So there's a photo, and they have a couple of them in there, so I copied them directly if I could. As I did the little car, which you don't really see because it's behind the wall. but that is also the same car as in the photo. So there's a whole community restoring and recreation Thomas models. They can tell one series from another. Slightly scary. Anybody who gets that into anything is slightly scary, Phil, but yeah. So James says the train looks good. Thank you, James. Max says nice looking model. Thank you, Max. Jam Arbalest. There's even the old chap closing the gate after the loco. You can almost see the tears in his eyes. Yeah, it's probably the end of his job as well. So yeah, really, really sad. Thanks, James. He says it's a great looking scene. Darkside says it looks fantastic. Thank you very much. And yeah, Monique says yeah. Jewel 21, he must suffer from sleep apnea. The fallen man. Oh, I don't know. Bless him. So have that where he's sozzled, trying to drink to forget his woes. Monique, I don't tell anyone I model railways for the same reason. People judge too much. I can tell those I know I won't. It's very hard now for me, but yes. And I do it full time. But people say to me, what do you do for a job? I say, oh, I'm a content creator. And they're like, what's that? I'm like, well, I do stuff for YouTube. I do scale models, is what I generally say. But yeah, I totally understand. So, love the Ginty, not widely known. The LMS sent 2 of them over to Belfast after re-gauging to 5'3". I didn't know that. It's a very nice model. It's Bachmann. Very nice model. And the wagon's also Bachmann. So, it's funny. It's going to be on Hornby and Model World. And they said, tell us about your favourite Hornby loco. I'm like, I don't own a Hornby loco. And they said, we've got this list of about 10. We want you to pick one off the list and talk about your thoughts or memories of it. I'm like, you haven't picked Hornby 00. I had Hornby 00 as a child. I had my dad's old 50s. But I don't have Hornby Cockclerk and I've never owned another Hornby loco. So I'm sorry. So there'll be no, when they do that, wherever that is in the episode, I won't be there because I don't have any thoughts on Hornby locos. I don't own any. And I've no intention really of buying stuff that I will carry on this type of quarry theme or small industrial. So I actually have now got a Bachmann Alice that arrived. I haven't run it yet. Actually, now the 009's out, if I can get that controller running, I can run it. But I hadn't set it up since I got it at Christmas. And it came from Rails of Sheffield. They were very good because I actually pre-ordered it twice by mistake. But yeah, so that's arrived. And I'll do a little quarry one up on one of the galleries or something like that. Just a little mini one, probably for that to run on. More as a working diorama. But yeah, it's a fun. Yeah, Norm, I'm not laughing. Oh, snap. Yep. Max, yeah, but you do some amazing work. I got your MMR book too, and man, some of the things you do is awesome. You and Luke Town, that is my go-to modelist. Thank you. I don't feel awesome. I think it's just one of those things. I can always see what I would do better, but I'm actually very pleased with this. There are a few things I would change, like the 009 running on the rolling stock, but you know. And as James says, round is a good quality for wheels, I find. I think it's excellent. But that sort of rocking is not unprototypical, so I'm just sticking with that. So Clay asked what's planned for 2023. Well, that's really dependent on whether this new job comes off, because that will either suck a lot of time or it won't happen. What I do know, I'll either be doing the new job or I'll be doing my Severna Spaceport terrain for Kickstarter. So in the mornings now, I'm doing my Kickstarter terrain. And, you know, I've got loads of stuff like this isn't quite thick enough. It's a bit bendy, but these are just tiles. They're like hex tiles. I'm experimenting and I'm doing buildings. So I've got plans for buildings, very heavily influenced by Thunderbirds and Mass Effect and Halo and Titanfall and all these other things that I watch on TV and probably Fallen Order now too. So that's what I'm doing in the morning, and in the afternoon I'm modelling. The modelling, I'm in the middle of doing some Star Wars stuff from Darkfire Designs. I've got a lat and then 2 of them failed, so there'll be some crash lats, and I've got loads of stuff because I'm doing Star Wars Legion. So you might see some Star Wars Legion models creep in to do the bases and the terrain and things. And then on top of that, I want to do some smaller techniques again, you know, some small dioramas with really exquisite technique modelling, and get away from you know, just dioramas to perhaps more technique again, because it is quite quick. So you can do a diorama and do 5 techniques in it or something. Then it's a bit quicker, because I need to speed up the YouTube because it takes too long. And if I'm going to be doing a Kickstarter work in the morning, I can't do it. But if I get a job, all this is out the window, and goodness knows what I'll be doing, because I'll be away a lot. So yeah, two minds about the job, because I've got great plans of what I want to do, but the job will earn me money. It's a toss up really. Oh, we're nearly at the end. So I'm going to go through the questions that are there. Tim, the Port Dinorwic has single flange skip wagon wheels packed into the original axle boxes, so they can run normal track. And they do look the part. That's good. Stephen, I used to get mocked for being a railway modeller, but I'm too old, too ugly and too damaged to care now. I don't really care anymore. March West Junction, awesome scene, looks really realistic. Thank you. Really appreciate that. That's what I was going for, realism. Monique, while we're talking about model trains, does anyone know of 00 scale brand fire engines with flashing lights? I don't, but someone might write it down below for you. Tell people you're a miniaturist. I like that, stating the obvious. I'm a miniaturist. I just tell them I'm a content creator. Yeah, that confuses them. Oh, James, oh, you have a Quarry Hunslet. Those are a joy. They're very teeny, smaller than many N-gauge locos. Yeah, it is. It's beautiful. I was handling it around to my parents. I was like, you know, can you even see it? So yeah. Tim, I used to keep my modelling railway activity quiet, but it's getting difficult to hide these days, so I'm now out. You get outed. You do. Thanks, Monique, for saying the layout looks good. Thank you. Phil, fire engines and flashing lights. Talk to Carl's Lights. He can fit them to anything. Brilliant work, a nice guy. Oh, great tip. Thanks, Phil. Jam, the only Hornby models that have interest is around the Peckets. Yeah, I don't really do UK modelling that much, so I don't really have views on UK locos. Tim says he's up to 5. I thought he said he was up to 5009, but it's 5 009 Quarry Hunslets now. Only one is Batman so far. The others came from kits. I have a Brian Madge kit to do. 2 more arriving soon, Batman. I do wonder if I have a problem and need therapy. But they're so cute. So, Max Star Wars, woohoo. Yeah, it's a lat at the moment. It's a Republic gunship for those of you who aren't into it. I'd like to do a Republic Walker. Partly because I'm going to put them on my Star Wars Legion board. But this is the one I'm working on at the moment is called After the Battle, and it's the clones at the end of the Siege of Mandalore, probably because I want to do the orange faces for Ahsoka. And I like Phase 2 armour better. So they're all just sat there looking weary on the edge of the lat. So the lat's painted, but the decal for the GAR, the Republic sign, only came 2 days ago. And I haven't modelled since then. I've been in Port Dinorwic. And I needed the decal, so it held it up. And I need to get out another video for the Ender Neptune 3 Plus that arrived. I could do with doing a couple of videos for that. And the Roundhouse for Thunderbirds will be one. But what I'm going to do is some palm trees. I got some 3.5 design 3D print palm trees. And you print them in filament and then you use a hot air gun to melt the plastic leaves into a better shape, warp them. So that's what I'm hoping to do this week. So yeah. Right, so we're getting near the end. So James says, that is a lot of Quarry Hunslets, but surely the only therapy that you need involves building a layout for your Hunslets and running them on them. He has a very nice layout, Quarrel Tegged. Oh, thank you, Kamanga. He says he loves my videos. Max, do I sell anything I do? Any dioramas? I've sold one so far and I don't think it's shipped that well to the US. So I would consider collection only for some, but probably all the ones that people want to buy are not the ones that I want to sell. So I will need to at some point. I don't have space. I'll see what's done. What I wouldn't mind doing is just doing a sort of a lot of them and getting rid of them, but they're often sci-fi. So I don't really know how to sell sci-fi dioramas. Patrick, Kathy, what do you do with your completed projects? I have to dismantle mine due to lack of space and need to move for the next one. Well, they're on the floor in the lounge at the moment, most of them, along with loads of crates. So there will be a bit of a, when I get the workshop, and I've got 3 bookshelves to put them in, they'll get distributed, and what's left, actually I've got 4 bookshelves now, will have to get sold, I guess. So there. Right. Okay, so guys, I'm going to end it now. So I'm just going to quickly whiz down the chat. Lee, thank you for coming. He says another super live stream. Mark, all the best for everyone, whatever. All the best for whatever's you end up doing. Looking forward to some great models. Thank you, Mark. Do you get burnout, Langt? Sounds like you have a lot on. I burnt out for most of last year. I burnt out for most of the year before. I've burnt out more in the last couple of years than the rest of my life put together. So yeah, I might talk about burnout. I don't think Thunderbirds will be as quick because I've got a lot going on at the moment. So I might talk about burnout in a live stream at some point. Secret Anorak, all the best for 2023. Hope your busy day tomorrow works out okay. So do I, thank you. And Norm, I have to leave a little early, Kathy. Fun stream, great retrospective. Good night, bye. Take care, Norm, thanks a lot. Bye, folks. Right, I'm going to end. Good night, everybody. Thank you for all your comments. I will read the rest of them now. But thank you so much. And don't forget to watch 8 PM tomorrow on Yesterday. And the YouTube video will come out at the same time. See you all then. Bye.